In this video, we're going to take a look at a brown ink by Montblanc there, Carlo Collodi. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that last name. Down below in the description is timestamps. You want to skip around, you can, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also down in the description is a link to the brown ink playlist, so if you want to check that out, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and some very, very nice shading. Look at how it goes dark to light to dark to light to dark. Back and forth is beautiful. I expect we're going to see some camouflage shading here. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and amazing shading all the way through. I can't even point out how much tone shift is going on because it's just so constant. 4 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, not as much shading. Still very nice shading that's going on here, but because it shows more of the darker tones, we don't see it as frequently, and 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show good color variation because we get it in the writing, and a smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Pilot 912 with a music nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, some very minor ghosting right here. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, little bits of some shading, not tons, but it is there. Look at the Collodi where it's a little darker to lighter to darker to lighter. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, decent shading, quick goes dark to light to dark, brown goes dark to light, 9 seconds to dry. Medium is the darkest tone on the page with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shading, 13 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show good color variation, though we're not getting it in the medium. And a smear test I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this very reddish tone pushing its way up, and it's really fleeing from the water, just gathering towards the top. But if you look at the very, very top, you see little bits of turquoise poking out, showing that this is a very nice mix where that brown and that really nice shading is coming in. I find that turquoise a bunch of times in the very nicely shading inks. The one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes, and there's no difference between the two of these. I don't expect any kind of resistance here. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, little bits of shading like Carlo goes darker to lighter to darker. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, decent shading, quick goes dark to light to dark, brown goes dark to light, fox goes lighter to darker, 4 seconds to dry. Medium is the darkest tone on the page with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. Medium shows in the medium scrubby shows no color variation. We didn't get any. The extra fine shows pretty good, and it is very good up there. And the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation because that lowercase h is completely blown out, and I'm risk averse. Now, water is reactivating and lifting most of this, but not all of this ink off the page. We're easily seeing the dots of the paper come through. Pen flush does everything that water does and nothing more, and the 1/3 bleach solution, as we would expect, completely obliterates it. Now the good news, it only took water to get this out of my pen. The next writing sample is done on TWSBI notebook paper. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, not much for shading. The extra fine is just a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does have some decent shading as quick goes darker to lighter to darker, brown goes darker to lighter, fox goes lighter to darker, 3 seconds to dry. Medium, again, is the darkest tone on the page. It's only a little bit darker than the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 5 seconds to dry. Now, the scrubby for both do show some color variation, very little in the medium, but we didn't really see it in the medium, and we did see some in the extra fine. The smear test, you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Montblanc's Carlo Collodi had a viscosity of 2.58, making it normal. If you're interested in how the viscosity tests and all that's done, then down in the description is a link to that video. The next writing sample, it's done on Leuchtturm 1917 paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It shows shade in that the M of Montblanc looks darker than the rest of the word, but not too much there. A little more absorbent paper. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, a couple of dark spots like the X in Fox. The 4 is darker. The B in Brown is darker. 4 seconds to dry. Medium is way darker than everything on the page, really showing the brown of this ink beautifully here. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows some color variation, and there's spots of it. The scrubby of the medium shows halo, and I wish we got that in the writing, but I think that's more the paper is an issue here. The scrubby or the smear test for both show you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Montblanc's Carlo Collodi has an average dry time of 7 seconds, means it dries really fast. The last writing sample is done on 28-pound copy paper. Now, the only spots we see that it actually bleeds heavy into the paper is in the medium, not in the extra fine. This is the scrubby, which not such a big deal. It does mean that there's not a problem using it with the extra fine, but with a medium, you may not be able to use the back of the page. None of it touched the page underneath. The medium, it has very minor feathering. It's really tiny feathering, but it's through all of it. But this is also where we saw a lot more of the bleeding heavy into the paper. It has no spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a little lighter toned than the stub. It has no feathering, no spread, no halo, no sheen, some spots of shading like the B in Brown is a little darker, the X in Fox, the D in Dog, the L in Lazy. So some spots of shade, 1 second to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows some color variation, which we do get, and the smear test you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Montblanc's Carlo Collodi, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a nice turquoise, and this was based off that little bit of turquoise that we were seeing in the chromatography. I went with Birmingham Pen Company's Point Park Fountain Turquoise. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Montblanc's Carlo Collodi? Such an awesome light brown with tons of shading. It's very red leaning as a tone, which I don't mind. That is kind of strange considering I don't care for red inks. I like the red leaning brown, but don't like red. Go figure. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? I liked how it looked out of every pen I wrote with. I just wish I had more to use and really spread out that experience even farther. This is a dealer's choice without a doubt, and if you can get your hands on it, the good news is you can put it in any pen and it's going to look awesome. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video we're going to look at a shimmer ink by Diamine, their Blue Pearl.